that we live in is not only defining the nature of a modern enterprise, the business models that are emerging, but also the language of business and new concepts of management are emerging all the time. In the previous section, change was looked at as a revamped and perhaps significantly enhanced model, which is more transformational in its application as opposed to being solution-oriented with specific goals and objectives in mind and with a specific focus in a static organizational context defined by rigid boundaries and a closed system perspective. The same change process, albeit emphasizing on lessons learned and building residual capability that an organization can lean on in order to drive more severe change in the future and increase the capability of the organization. Nonetheless, change management for transformation may still have shortcomings in terms of creating something new in the context of the digital revolution, and with a clear mandate for leadership to predict the future and set about establishing new business models and future enterprises that are capable of competing, growing, and impacting significantly on customers' satisfaction and resulting advocacy. There is, however, convergence in the most recent management thinking, at least insofar as defining an integrated perspective on the role of leaders in a modern context. Leaders are expected in the future to combine strategic insight with the ability to move hearts and minds. Survey after survey have revealed that most leaders consider that their future strategies will be more to inspire the future as opposed to do the obvious, which is to research, analyze, and extrapolate from past experiences and trends into what the future might look like. With big data, more understanding of the complex dynamics of the business world, leaders are now in a position to make sound decisions with the help of analytics and predictive models, and therefore to steer their organizations towards a future state in a radically new way. Furthermore, insofar as the hearts and mind are concerned, the development and deployment of strategic thinking in the future will not be through carving up roles and responsibilities for individuals and slicing different aspects of the strategy for different levels and with a range of key performance indicators distributed in an uneven and sometimes non-logical way. Organizational inclusiveness in the future will be more stakeholder-oriented and will be taken as an opportunity for revisiting the value creation process, with the customer being a primary stakeholder in giving their input, and with widening the collaboration internally and externally with other key players who may have the power for defining and helping deliver value that will impact significantly on the customer and which will bring benefits for the enterprise itself. Within the context of inspiring the future and managing through inclusiveness, leaders in the future will start to look at the organizational system as an important network of key players and stakeholders, and where the strategy is more fluid and all the activities that the organization manages are treated from a relative perspective. Future strategies will therefore be relative strategies, with agility being the steering wheel for guiding and changing direction as the change becomes real and the necessity for pursuing other avenues becomes the top priority. The concept of adaptive leadership was first suggested by Heifetz, who identified that organizations face two main challenges: technical problems, particularly with the speed with which technology evolves and changes the business world, and what he called adaptive challenges, those challenges where there is no known solution because they have never been experienced before. Adaptive leadership, as suggested by Heifetz, focuses on the process and not the person. It is supported by knowledge and know-how that may not be existing within the organization, but which could be borrowed from elsewhere in order to steer the organization in the right way. Heifetz defines adaptive leadership as the practice of mobilizing people to tackle tough challenges and thrive. He identifies 4 preconditions for adaptive leadership: getting rid of the broken systems illusion, learn to live in the equilibrium, engage above and below the neck, connect to purpose. He also suggests 7 mindsets for adaptive leaders: conserve essential values and capacities, experiment pervasively, scan 360 degrees for new challenges, improvise responsively, model consistently, have the stomach for losses, distinguish leadership from authority. So the process of leadership based on adaptation, adaptability, or adaptive behavior is one which demands learning through immersing, experimenting, applying solutions, and acquiring new ways of thinking and operating. This is done by recognizing that in most instances, the human element is perhaps the major challenge, because as we progress with new technology, the obsolescence is not in the technology in itself, which is easy to deal with by phasing out the old and bringing in the new, but how to avoid at any cost the obsolescence of people in terms of their skills and the competencies, and how to keep at least the human capital functioning at a basic level with tremendous pressures brought in by smart systems, artificial intelligence, and connected mobile technology that is redefining the parameters of doing business all the time. It seems, therefore, that the leadership of disruption is confronted with various complex issues. On the one hand, the leadership of disruption is expected to cope with the exponential growth of new options, new technological solutions, and new external impositions on the enterprise to realign itself with. On the other hand, the enterprise itself, not just from the point of view of structural arrangements and its reconfiguration to make sense in terms of value creation and managing the value chain, but it is the human capital that was the key enabler during the previous eras of industrial revolutions, where the skill base tended to have a longer shelf life, and where the knowledge and expertise of individuals was the most valuable asset into an era where the skill and competency base has shrunk in terms of shelf life, and the commoditization of knowledge has become real. Human beings now are the real challenge, and how do we develop, therefore, a capacity for adaptation in terms of relevancy of know-how and the acquisition of skills and competencies that can help steer value creation in a radically new business environment propelled by smart technologies, and where technology is no longer a static support infrastructure where humans can impose their supremacy in terms of issuing commands and controlling the performance of machines and devices, into an era where technology is as intelligent as a human being, or has superseded the need for humans to issue command and instructions, and where smartness in a cyber physical integrated environment has hijacked the essence of a typical classical enterprise as we have grown to know it. An interesting report published by IBM and entitled "Capitalizing on Complexity," based on a significant face-to-face series of interviews with more than 1,500 CEOs in different parts of the world, has highlighted the depth and severity of the leadership crisis that we have at the moment, and which will be struggling to cope with the new business world redefined through disruptions caused by the digital revolution. The leaders who were interviewed have recognized that complexity is only expected to rise, and over half of the CEOs interviewed doubt their ability to manage it. They also have highlighted that creativity is the most important leadership quality. Out of the sample analyzed, the most successful organizations have already moved their practices towards operating as an open system by increasing the scope for co-creation in the development of products and services with customers, and using technology to integrate their customers into core processes. What is reassuring, however, is that the elite organizations in the report seem to have the answer to how to deal with the future of business and how to shape their enterprises so that they can survive and prosper. Leading CEOs have suggested that in order to capitalize on complexity, they will create a new mindset which is fit for competition in the 21st century, based on the interplay between three different mindsets. Leaders of modern enterprises have started to realize that creativity is the number one priority of everything else they do in their organization, and therefore puts pressure on them to develop skills and expertise in creativity. It is assumed that creative leaders are comfortable with ambiguity and the art of experimentations. In order for them to connect and inspire the digital natives as a new generation, they will have to communicate with the same language creatively and interact through the exchange of concepts, ideas, and crazy thoughts sometimes in new, entirely different ways. Whilst creativity is recognized as an important leadership characteristic, nonetheless, it colludes directly with some of the long-held beliefs of experienced leaders who emphasize more on steadying the ship and nudging and optimizing the business model by doing the changes externally in terms of reaching out to new markets and potential customers without having to tamper with or reconfigure the value chain, and in particular establish distinctive capabilities that they have led to in order to compete with, and which tend to represent their pride and joy. Creativity, on the other hand, puts everything into question, and it's a process which is inclusive and allows others to participate in shaping ideas and concepts. Creativity is the basis for disruptive innovation and continuous reinvention. Leaders who adopt creativity as the number one characteristic that they depend on accept that whether it's a micro or macro perspective for disrupting the business, this is something that is worth considering, and they will not therefore hesitate to challenge the status quo for the future of the enterprise as a whole. Whether it is the BMI in relation to the way value is created for the customer, or the business model itself in terms of its configuration, its positioning in the marketplace, or the revenue model, these business leaders will disrupt through creativity in order to do the right thing and in order to create success in the long run. Creative leaders are also those individuals who can embrace ambiguity by breaking out silos and challenging the myth that things cannot be done or are impossible through the building of a proactively oriented enterprise that can exchange knowledge and know-how with a connected network and operating as an open system. Ambiguity brings with it breakthrough thinking and will encourage the challenging of existing practices and the culture of experimentation at all levels within the business. This will propel the enterprise forward with breakthrough innovations that are what the customer is interested in and what the existing capabilities can develop and provide, and more importantly, what can be scaled up profitably so that the enterprise can look at it seriously, whether it is to do with deepening the capability for exploring and testing technology as an enabler, or whether it is to gain bigger insights and better knowledge of what really makes customers behave in the way they do, or whether it is merely the curiosity of what is possible, what could be developed in the future, are all legitimate questions to be answered and motivational aspects for creating disruption and not having any fear from uncertainty. It goes without saying, therefore, that big data and the use of analytics is of great help. It has already been accepted now that customers are primary stakeholder in defining, designing, influencing the delivery aspect of their innovation and deciding on its consumption in a context that enables them to derive the specific fulfillments that they are interested in. Through the connected world, customers can be a key partner in determining how value is created and how benefits are captured by the leading innovator enterprise. Leaders of disruption have therefore got to rethink customer relationships and get even more closer to their customer base. This was identified to be one of the top focus areas in the next 5 years by the global sample of CEOs interviewed through the IBM report. by leveraging the information explosion through the factory of big data processing and the use of analytics, leaders can get closer to their customers and they can understand behavior with more confidence and predictability. Furthermore, in addition to the great insight, leaders in the future will, in the newly defined ecosystem, integrate customers in the process of designing the customer experience and thereby being able to offer their value proposition as the ability of products and services with the pledge of making the experience memorable and extremely fulfilling for the end customer. The IBM study has also revealed that CEOs are mastering complexity in countless ways. They are redesigning operating strategies in order to achieve ultimate speed and flexibility. They also have learned how to embed valued complexity in products and services which are elegantly designed through significant and proactive involvement of customers and through iterations, enhancements, and personalization that guarantees fulfillment and satisfaction in the end. These capabilities that have been integrated into the process of building innovations that are customer-oriented and are personalized in terms of offering experiences that are memorable have formed the basis of scalable business models that brought with them loads of commercial success and, more importantly, have secured the future of the enterprises themselves. So the conclusion from this significant survey conducted on a global basis is that complexity of the digital world, whilst extremely challenging, does also offer the opportunity for leaders to capitalize on and to approach it from the point of view of creating a new business mindset through interconnectivity, collaboration, and the redefinition of what constitutes value creation and how to use creativity as a catalyst for challenging existing mindsets and offering the opportunity for other stakeholders to be engaged in a meaningful way, to reconfigure, reinvent, and perhaps newly create capable enterprises that can cater for the future needs of the millennium customer base. In a summarized format, the three pillars that will allow leaders of disruption to create success for their organizations, and supported by the wide experience of over 1,500 CEOs who look at the future with optimism and with total confidence.